All right. I need you to repeat exactly what I just said.
Sleep at night, distill in day, laws yes. MOON, that spells distillation.
What? That's not what we just discussed.
That can't be good.
Look at you, you're nothing but a hacksaw. You'll never defeat us, the Screwdriver Army.
Hey there. Welcome to the channel. Welcome to the first episode of The Master of None. Today, we're going to talk about a question that's been on my mind. Why is the rum always gone? Now, we can't prevent the rum from ever being gone, but we can help the rum from not being always gone. So today's episode, we're going to talk about the history and distillation of rum, and we're going to try our hand at it ourselves. So come along with me on the journey, and let's screw up together. Okay, so what is rum anyway? Rum is an alcoholic drink, a liquor made from the distillation of molasses and raw cane sugar. Now, there are variations on the raw ingredients, but for our purposes, this is rum. If you were to ask me, the word stems from a drink that was already in existence in the 17th century Caribbean, a drink called rum bouillon, which was a drink made from boiling sugar cane. By the mid-1600s, rum had become popular enough that far to the north, in the colonies of New York and Massachusetts, there were established distilleries whose sole focus was on the production of rum. Indeed, the drink had become so popular that by the late 1600s, the drink replaced French bourbon as payment for services on the African side of the triangle trade. After the capture of Jamaica in 1655, rum again replaced French bourbon as the general ration and became forever linked with pirates and British sailors. Time jump a few centuries later, and it's a nearly $2.5 billion industry, and my personal drink of choice. So there are essentially 4 ingredients that are going to go into our rum. The first of which is raw cane sugar. That's that kind of brown looking sugar. The second is molasses. The third is yeast nutrient. And then finally, the yeast itself. Different recipes will have different quantities, different variations on the theme. Feel free to look online. There's billions of recipes, no doubt. I'm using a very simple one, and we're going to go over that next. Here I am measuring out the ingredients. This is raw cane sugar. You can get this at the supermarket, not in this large quantity. This bowl holds half of what I need, so if I know math correctly, all I need to do is play this video twice, and we'll have 8 pounds. Put it in some hot water to help dissolve the sugar. And it's a pretty big pot I'm using. I can't remember what it is. I think it's probably 6 gallons. Stir it up. And we're just making sure that everything's nice and dissolved. No kind of graininess on the bottom. Next item up for bid here is the molasses. We're going to be using 12 pounds of molasses here. Going to actually be doing a double batch, so I've got a 5-gallon bucket of molasses. It is not a clean job. It got everywhere. The molasses gets added to the pot, stir it up, dissolve it all, and then it goes into the primary fermenter. And once it cools down, then we'll be able to add the yeast nutrient, and the yeast. One SpongeBob time duration joke later. Adding in the yeast nutrient, some stuff I've never used before, and it's measured by the 1,000 gallons. Not a whole lot going in there, so hopefully it works out. Getting ready for the yeast now. The temperature has to be between 95 and 105 degrees Fahrenheit. And this kind of cool time lapse is the yeast activating over the course of 15 minutes. Once the yeast is activated, pour it into the wash. I let it sit in there for a couple of days and then transferred it to the secondary container, which is just a 5-gallon glass carboy. And this was about 6 gallons, so I needed a little 1-gallon carboy just to get everything set up. And the final step for the carboys is to put an airlock on the top. That allows gases to escape, but air can't get in. Oxidation can cause off flavors, so that's what we want to avoid. This is really the yeast in action here. You can see all these little bubbles. That's carbon dioxide that the yeast is making. Wait a few weeks for the fermentation to stop, and then we're ready for the distillation. Now, what is distillation? Distillation is defined as the action of purifying a liquid by a process of heating and cooling. Okay, Poindexter, you say. What does that all mean? Well, let's think of it like this teapot. So we have a heat source. In this case, it's the propane burner. And we have our vessel with our liquid in it. And it's the pot itself. And once the liquid gets hot enough, then steam is formed. And in the case of this teapot, steam's just going out in the atmosphere. But in our case, we're going to capture it and we're going to condense it with some cold water, and that's going to reliquefy it. And I'll show you that whole setup in the next clip where I'm setting up the still. So just like in my stupid teapot example, here we have the heat source, we have the pot, and these pipes are where the steam is going to go up and it's going to be condensed in a cooling jacket. Now here there's like a pipe inside a pipe, and the inner pipe is where our steam is going into, and the outer pipe is the water jacket that I'm pumping water into. You can see a bucket, and I've got a small pond pump, and that's what's pumping the water constantly as the process goes on. Eagle-eyed viewers will probably see that I've got a thermocouple hooked to the top, and that is how I monitor the temperature of the steam. A couple of years ago, I built a controller, PLC based, and that's what monitors the steam, and it sends pulses to the heat source. The heat source I'm using right now is the heating element to a hot water heater, and my controller is just sending pulses to maintain the heat of the liquid itself. If anyone's interested more about the controller itself, why I did it, how I did it, leave a comment in the video and maybe I can address that in a future video, just something standalone. At this point in the process, it's just a matter of turning the controller on, setting the parameters, and waiting a god-awful amount of time for the wash to heat up. And eventually, we will get the satisfying drip of condensed alcohol. This thing's really starting to crank now. Let's give it a taste. Definitely rum flavor. Definitely very, very harsh. Still early in the game. This is the stripping run, so it's going to be pretty rough until we distill it another couple of times. Wait, stripping run?
Oh, baby.
Who said that? Stripping run is the first step I take when distilling. I run the still a little hotter than I might normally, and it's pretty fast as well. Basically, it's just distilling everything that has a lower boiling point than water and collecting it all in one jar. And then the next step would be to make the cuts. Spirit run, also known as the cuts, is the fine-tuning of the alcohol, and it's split up into 4 categories. 4 shots. The very first distillate to condense. This contains aldehyde, acetone, and the start of methanol. I usually set my starting temperature for the steam around 145 degrees Fahrenheit. The heads, this is the point where the low boiling alcohols are found, methanol and ethyl acetate. I'll slowly increase the temperature of the steam in order to boil off as much of the various liquids as I can, generally up to about 175 degrees Fahrenheit, and then start increasing the temperature for the next phase. The hearts. This is the range that we want. At around 196 degrees Fahrenheit, ethanol is boiling, and that's the alcohol that we want to collect. Tails. This is the end phase of the process, and it's basically to the point where there's not a whole lot of alcohol left in the distilled liquid dripping out, starting at maybe 205 degrees Fahrenheit. Through each stage of the process, I'm constantly tasting what comes out, and I make judgment calls on when I think cuts should be made. You'll see a lot of folks use separate jars for the different cuts. I put everything in just one jar, and I call it good. At the end of the stripping run, I got about a half a gallon of alcohol, so I would say that's pretty good. Time to distill it another 2 times. At the end of 2 more distillations, I was left with roughly 1/3 of a gallon of what I consider useful alcohol. So now the next step is to see what we got for proof. To measure proof, I have something called an alcoholometer. And if anyone's familiar with like maple syrup, or even if you make wine, it's identical almost to a hydrometer. And what we're going to do is pour the alcohol into a glass cylinder and plop the alcoholometer in and see what it reads. And it looks like it's just shy of 75%. So for ease of math, we can say that this is 150 proof.
When can we taste this stuff? When?
Fine. Let's go. Okay, so the whole process is over. We've made the wash, we distilled it again, and we distilled it again. We measured the proof, and now what I didn't show you was that I diluted the alcohol with some water, and I brought it to about 50%. I probably dilute a little bit more in the future, but for right now it's fine. I have a shot glass of the stuff, and this is going to be really the first real taste that I'm going to take of it, and this is going to be one shot glass, one take. I'm not doing another one, so let's see how this goes. Obviously, I don't do shots very often, but it's a different flavor than I'm used to. I've made rum before. It was more of like the commercial rum flavor that you expect. This is a little different. I mentioned in the video that I used a different yeast nutrient. I also used a different yeast, which was also measured by the 1,000 gallons. So we could tweak that a little bit. I definitely don't drink this straight like this ever. I'm a rum and coke kind of guy, so don't let my face fool you. This actually isn't that bad. It's very, very smooth though. Definitely burning as it goes down, but it's super smooth. I like to distill things 3 times just to make it not, so harsh. I would say overall this was a successful distillation, and like I said, I've got another batch that I'm going to do and maybe tweak a couple of things. If you're interested in anything that I've just done, I probably forgot to mention 1,000 things. Please leave a comment in the video below, and I'll try to address everyone that I can. Cheers. Well, that's our show. Thanks for watching. If you'll excuse me, I've got some galliforms that need caloric intake through non-trophallaxis feeding. See ya. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you're enjoying what you see on the channel, please like, share, and subscribe. Also, don't forget to hit the bell icon for any notifications from future videos. See you on the next one.